Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Now, on today's show, we're going to be discussing how to raise your company profile in the financial press. My guest in the studio today is Quinn from Headline Money. Headline Money is a platform where financial services companies can post their press releases and media relations content, where then financial journalists log into the service and they search for press releases to try and find some stories and ideally then use them. Is it a difficult sector these days for, shall we say, a new entrant into the financial marketplace, maybe with a new product or a new service? Is it difficult to get that profile raised in the marketplace out there? Are journalists a little bit picky on what they're sort of choosing and what they're writing about?
Yeah, they are. What we tend to find now with a lot of the challenger banks or the money apps, it's a very, very sexy topic, and you'll find that financial journalists will take maybe the top 10 money apps, and they will kind of review and critique each one of those. So first of all, you need to get your profile raised, so you're included in some of these lists and be written about. But equally, I think it's about getting your content and your press release and your commentary into the marketplace, and where better to go than somewhere like Headline Money, where we have those press releases there from all the big players to some of the smaller ones, and it's a place for the journalists to come in, take that information out and those press releases and hopefully use it.
Well, you've got this traffic from the journalists actually going there, so they're looking. If you were to turn around then to the people who are the PR teams up and down the land, who are writing the press releases, what would be your advice to them? What's the biggest mistake they make? What's the thing that attracts a journalist to go, yep, there's a story in that? What do they need to do?
What they need to do, there's a misconception. A press release comes in and there'll be a subject line in the email for immediate release, for example, or whatever, and it might say, Steve Hyland says this. Steve Hyland for Business Connections says that. The journalist doesn't...
It's got a very so what, isn't it? What? So what?
But the journalist doesn't particularly care what Business Connections or Steve Hyland says. What they want is something that's quite catchy, that piques their interest, first of all. And I'll give you an example from a press release from an insurer, client of ours, before Christmas. The subject line of the email was, Santa Paws is kind to dogs. Now, that piqued a lot of journalists' interest, but the body of the actual press release was simply around, according to their research, we spend more money on our pets' presents than we do on our siblings and relatives.
And quite rightly so.
Quite rightly so. But the point I'm getting at is, it was an interesting, fantastic story, but more to the point, that subject line grabbed the attention of those journalists.
When you're looking at the kind of content that you're putting in, are surveys a good way to go? It just seems that, for instance, it seems to be a very open market. A lot of the tabloid press seems to print a lot of the surveys. So-and-so said that 1 in 5 did this, that or the other. Surveys seem to be a good way to go. Would that be a recommendation if you're looking for something to whet the appetite of a journalist, to maybe go down that route? Or do they like stories?
It's a bit of a mixture of both. I mean, I would probably recommend that you do have some research, some survey done to kind of supplement your press release. But yes, sometimes just a typical story would work. Some companies, of course, will put in freedom of information requests to get particular government data that they need as well. So, but again, it depends on the firepower that you've actually got. But of course, if you're a new entrant to the market, you've obviously got your sort of customer data within reason that you could potentially use. But
Now, sometimes when you're looking at this, and we've all done this, when we start off, when we're new to press and PR, what we do is we make a collection of all the journalists that we want. We don't have to do that anymore because we go on to your website. And then what you do is you use the buckshot effect. You go, right, here is the story, I'm just going to send it everywhere. Is that the right way to approach it, do you think? Or do you think you should be, it's a bit like being a sniper. A sniper doesn't use very many bullets, but he gets his target. Should we all be snipers when it comes to getting our press releases out there, being very particular?
No, the scattergun approach just doesn't work. We've found every year we do a survey of our journalist database, and we call it the State of the Nation report. And one of our questions is what do PRs do well or don't do well? And one of the questions, well, one of the responses was that the journalists hate the fact that the particular PRs don't know their target audience. So first and foremost, if you're writing about, if you've got a process about pensions and you're sending it to a journalist that writes about insurance, that is going to rightly wind them up. So you need to know your audience. And the way you can know your audience is something like Headline Money, where you can go in and you can dice and slice the journalist database. So if you're only after, say, the pension writers across the nationals, or you're only after certain financial bloggers, you can dice and slice accordingly.
Will the database also show the demographics of the readership that they are publishing into as well? So we've got our audience, so we seem to have two different audiences there, don't we? We have the journalistic audience, and we also have the reader audience, where the journalist is writing for. Do you see that as well in Headline Money? Does it differentiate the two and allow you to see the target audience?
Well, we don't quite do that, but what we do is certain movers and shakers in the journalist community, every week we do a Money Talks interview. So we will normally ask them about 20 questions about when is the best time of day to reach out to them, what their interests are, how they got into journalism. So the idea is to actually build up a picture of, for example, Dan Hyde at the Mail. You'd build up a picture of what Dan likes, what he doesn't like, what he writes about, quite obviously. And just sort of making that initial connection. So when you pick up the phone and speak to Dan Hyde, you know what his favourite football team is, or you know the particular busy days to avoid. And the obvious one is obviously don't contact journalists on press day.
I mean, it's interesting, this, isn't it? It's all about building relationships. So is the website, when I use the website, is that the beginning of building a relationship that then tends to go offline and becomes a one-to-one relationship? Or is it something that continues, whereas I'm posting to the website and the journalist is there, but I can contact the journalist directly, and there's kind of there's three of us involved in the party?
Yeah, you can think of it like that. I mean, first and foremost, I would say that the platform, if you think of an analogy, think of press releases as fish in a pond, and think of the fisherman as a journalist, and they're casting their rods in, and they're trying to catch fish, or they're trying to catch press releases and pulling out the ones that are of most interest to them when they're obviously sort of fishing for stories. So there's that element of it. It's quite a passive way of doing it. They're going in, if they see something they like, if the subject line of the press release piques their interest and it's something they're going to write about, they will contact you about that. So there's that element of it. The second one is, in a more proactive way, is you need to try and reach out to those particular journalists, and the only way of doing that is actually picking up the phone, trying to find a quiet period where they're happy to go out to have a coffee, have a lunch with you. Well, I was going to say, in the days of old, it would be, you'd take them out for a lunch or something like that, wouldn't you? But I take it those days really, it's not the same anymore. It's a coffee, maybe a quick breakfast or something like that, so that you're getting more of a relationship with them, as opposed to a boozy slap-up lunch, which I suppose can be construed in so many different ways, can't it? It can. Of course, and yes, the younger generation of journalists now are doing less boozing, of course, but what we found is that, again, in our journalist survey, is that 68% of the journalists are happy to meet for breakfast, for informal briefings around a breakfast, around a coffee, around a dinner. So it's important, they are still willing to meet, but of course meet on their terms. So during quiet times. But hence, if you go onto our Money Talks interviews, you'll be able to see there's certain journalists that they will state when they are available.
All right, we've talked then about what we're meant to be doing. So we're looking at press releases that are targeted, and let's talk a little bit about the content then, shall we? Obviously, we're trying to attract their attention with a bold, striking headline.
Yeah.
And that's going to draw them in. What about the actual content when it comes to the data that's contained inside of it? What's important there?
What's important there is that, you've got to have a narrative of a story, first and foremost. And I think you've got to actually have some element of sources behind it and some data behind it.
So if you're doing a survey, for instance, you actually need proper hard data that they can investigate.
Exactly.
So they can research.
Indeed, and also, you're going to have links there to how many you've surveyed, and the sample size and that sort of thing. It's not something that you can make up, because let's face it, they are journalists and they will pick holes in it. So you've got to make sure that your survey that you've done or your research is fairly robust, because they are going to bat back, and that's what they're paid to do.
And of course, okay, then let's look at, so we're trying to raise our profile. What about having a strategy? The number of times that we post, the number of press releases that we do, what would be your suggestion there? Is it a case that we step back for a moment, we go, look, there's a year, that's 12 months, let's put a strategy together, let's make certain that we've got 4 press releases every month, we've got particular stories, maybe we tie in with seasonal events and things like that. Are those things that are kind of important when it comes to planning your campaign?
They are. I mean, what you'll find now, whether you're a startup, fintech business, or you're a major bank, or anyone in between, or a big insurer, you will plan out your year of your press release output. And what a lot of the clever ones do is they will tie it around the fiscal events of the year. Now, of course, there are 2 fiscal events every year, one being the spring statement and one being the autumn budget. And we find that our journalist traffic massively peaks. Well, it peaks 3 times every year, twice around the fiscal events, so the spring statement coming up in a few weeks' time, and of course the autumn budget. But the next time it peaks, of course, is around the Headline Money Awards in May, but we'll talk about that in a moment, yeah. So those key events...
They're all checking to see if they're going.
Exactly. So you've got those key events, but importantly, if you're in financial services, you need to provide spokespeople around these key events. Now, for example, if one of your key spokespeople is happy to talk around pensions, around the budget, then it's a perfect opportunity to use Headline Money, because we have a separate section every year around the budget where all budget press releases and commentary goes into one place, so those journalists can come in and feed on all those budget press releases in one area, and also they have a range of spokespeople that they can target as well. So the important things would be around a couple of fiscal events, and then secondly, in terms of number of press releases, look, it depends on resource and what you're trying to get out there, but I would probably say, a couple a month, because at the end of the day, it's about drip feeding those press releases on a regular basis, because journalists may at that particular time go, look, I'm not writing about pet insurance now, but do you know what? Couple of things going through: car insurance, pet insurance, home insurance, and they see that you're becoming the experts in that area, and eventually a few months later that journalist will say, do you know what, I'm going to go back and, that's interesting, yeah, I'm going to go and speak to them. So it's about building your reputation, building your confidence, your know-how, and you become thought leaders.
You look at a number of organisations that are out there, and their representatives that you see regularly on screen, their spokespeople. Do you think it's important to have a recognisable spokesperson for your organisation who nearly reinforces what the press releases are saying, is a good conduit to actually share the information with the journalists? Is that something that companies need, or is it still okay to just write and post?
No, I think you do need to have a spokesperson, but I would say, people. And what we're finding more and more now is that it's important to for the whole sort of gender balance, it's quite important that you can't just have a white male as a spokesperson. You need to give.
Is that important? Do you think?
Yes, I think so. And it's going to get.
Why is it so important then?
Well,
because traditionally it seems that push me down if I'm wrong on this, but traditionally the financial press tends to be white males, doesn't it?
Yeah. But there's more and more really great females that are coming up the ranks, and you'll find that there are many publishers and broadcasting houses now that need to balance up the people they're putting on screen or they're writing about. So you need to now actually have that balance. So it's no good you having one male spokesperson. You really need to try and find a female of equal quality. But it's not really about the balance. I mean, if the male is better than the female, then it's all about the best spokesperson. But I do feel that you need to just try and have that balance.
In your experience, have you seen that when organisations don't have that balance, have you seen maybe sometimes the journalists turning them away and saying, actually, we are looking for that gender equality, and really at the moment you don't quite fit in with the story because ideally we need a female spokesperson?
Well, Steve, you are finding that in the next few months, this particular way forward is going to become more and more prevalent.
Well, I know the BBC are going down that route, aren't they? And that's becoming more and more important to the national broadcasters, that there is this gender equality across the board, and you're seeing that as well in your organisation.
We are. I mean, we are trying to. I mean, outside of headline money, we've got mortgage strategy and money marketing, and our editors are trying to put out more female spokespeople to try and balance it up.
You mentioned earlier on about having a strategy and actually having the different press releases out there at the appropriate times, and you said that there is a peak 3 times or thereabouts on the website when people are coming to the website. Do you think organisations should make absolutely certain that they do have a spokesperson available at those peak times?
Yeah, most definitely. Because if we just talk around, the budget, for example, you will always get journalists wanting spokespeople around tax rates going up, or any element that Hammond stands up about, and it's important. It's just reinforcing what they're saying. So yes, I mean, but have them ready to go. I mean, rent a quote, have the quote there, but equally that they're on the end of a line and they're able to be called upon. It's really important. And
that leads on. So from a press release end, are a lot of the interviews that you get with journalists, we talked earlier on about them having informal meetings, breakfast, lunches, a cup of coffee, but is a lot of this also done over the telephone too?
Yeah, I mean, again, the journalists themselves are really quite time poor, so they are more than happy to pick up the phone, and I really recommend, rather than if you're a PR and you just bamboozle them with emails and the press releases, there's a phone number there. Pick up the phone.
People are frightened of doing that, aren't they?
They are slightly.
They're frightened of doing that.
It's really old-fashioned. But pick up the phone, explain who you are, explain how you found their information on Headline Money, and arrange that coffee.
Now, every year you give an opportunity to the industry to talk to the journalists, to do a bit of networking, to go out there, maybe have a glass of wine or 3.
Yeah.
And that's happening on the 8th of May this year, the Headline Money Awards. What's the inspiration behind that? Why do you do that? Who's it for? And why is it important to be part of it?
Yeah, fine. The Headline Money Awards is the Oscars of the financial journalism world and the PR world. Why is it important? Well, first and foremost, it celebrates the best in financial journalism. So, Insurance Journalist of the Year, Financial Commentator of the Year, Pensions Journalist of the Year, for example, or all of those things. But what is important about it is voted for, and they are voted for and judged by their peers. It's really important. It isn't that the sponsor has got a shoe in and they can get their favoured person in. It doesn't work that way. It works about, we judge the entries, it's fair and proper, but their peers have voted for them. So, for example, if Josephine Cumbo wins Pensions Journalist of the Year, or Claire Barrett from the FT, they are so excited because it's been it's been voted for by
their
colleagues
peers
and their peers. So that's important, and it's important for our sponsors. So the big and the small names in the financial world, that they are there championing and supporting the best in financial journalism.
I suppose the thing is as well, if they go to the awards, they get a bit of a feel for what Headline Money is all about, don't they?
Yeah, no, definitely.
If you want to find out more details concerning the actual event, you can go to the website and you'll find it here. This is headlinemoney.co.uk. It's the 2019, Wednesday the 8th of May 2019 at the Brewery in London. It's the Money Media's favourite night of the year. It's a great networking event, incidentally. All the information that you need there, why to attend, how to book a table if you fancy going. Also still some sponsorship opportunities as well. But if you're not proven on that, if you still don't think you've got the right reasons to go, why don't you watch that video, Headline Money Awards 2018, why people went and what the winners, and what it means to the winners, what it means to the very journalists that you're trying to get in contact with, and why it's so important for you to be there. If you've got a message to tell, maybe this is your opportunity to go along to an event that's actually going to give you the platform to get your information over there. Is there anything else we need to remember about that? I mean, when it comes to the Headline Money Awards, the number of financial journalists that are going to be there, I would imagine it must go into the hundreds that are going to be there.
It does indeed. So it's interesting, Steve. Actually, every year, I mean, we're talking about 550 plus people in the room at the brewery. Roughly 350 of those are actual journalists. So take the PRs to one side for a minute. Anybody who's anybody in financial journalism is there on the night. So it's just, I think it's the most superb networking night of the year. You've got a chance to it. We've got an app where you can go around and you can actually you can request to meet particular journalists, but do it early, of course.
Do it early, while you're still sober.
Exactly.
So a fantastic night.
Yeah.
So the awards are going to be taking place, as I said, on the 8th of May. Now, we're nearly at the end. It was really just a brief introduction to what we were talking about today. If, before we ask you to do a bit of a summary and the key takeaways, if there was something else, is there anything else that you think is important to businesses when it comes to getting their message out there and being perceived as the thought leaders within their industry? Is there any other recommendations you would make?
Yeah, what I would also say is every year, Headline Money, we run something called a New Journalist Masterclass. Now, to explain that, what that is we get a venue, we invite along 6 sponsors to talk about a particular topic that they know really, really well. So it could be mortgages, it could be pensions, it could be investments, it could be comparison websites. And we then, once we've got a full agenda, we then approach the editors of the national press and some of the trade titles and ask them who are their brand new intake of financial journalists. So they normally release about 25 journalists to us. They give them to us for a whole day, and the sponsors and their thought leaders and spokespeople then present their wares over an hour. And the great thing there is they're giving education and some thought leadership to those brand new journalists in the room, but they're also giving out some story ideas, and it's a really, really good networking opportunity. And hopefully they will make friends for life, and they will start writing about those particular topics.
I suppose at the end of the day, it's people meeting people and people becoming work friends, and then understanding what everybody's trying to achieve, isn't it?
Exactly.
And it just makes life a little bit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Listen, it's been really interesting talking about this, so don't forget, we've got the awards coming up on the 8th of May. If you want more details, you can, of course, go to their website and you can find out more details about that. All the details are there if you'd like to be a sponsor, if you'd like to get a table. All you got to do is go to the website at headlinemoney.co.uk. The awards 2019, the Headline Money Awards 2019, Wednesday the 8th of May 2019, the Brewery in London, and you can book your table on their website straight away, or if you want to be a sponsor, or if you want to find out a little bit more, you can go and have a word and give Martin Quinn a quick call as well on the telephone. Before we finish, I always ask our guests to give us a quick and brief, doesn't have to be brief, it could be as long as you want. Right. If you want to talk for an hour, go right ahead. The key takeaways that we need to remember from what we've talked about today. Straight down camera number 4, the airwaves are all yours.
Hi, I'm Martin Quinn, Head of Sales at Headline Money. And if you're looking to raise your financial profile, I've got some hints and tips that I think is good to follow. Firstly, you need to swim where the fish are. Now, what I mean by that is you need to put your press releases in a place where the financial journalists are looking. And, for example, they are going daily into Headline Money where they are looking for a press release. They're looking for a story angle. So why not put your press releases somewhere where they are fishing for a story? Number 2, in a press release, please don't mention the company name unless you are a massive household name. The journalist doesn't really want to know that. The journalist wants something catchy that's going to pique their interest. In the body of the email, in the second paragraph, it's okay to say X says this, according to X's research says that. That's fine. But don't have it in the subject line because you are going to turn off that particular journalist. Number 3, pick your target publications and your journalists well, and do your research beforehand. Don't have a scattergun approach. That's not going to work. Journalists getting bombarded with emails is also not going to work. And I've seen some research recently where the average financial journalist has 300 unopened emails. So your press release could be stuck in number 200. Will it ever get opened? So what you need to do is research who you want to target, be it the editors of the Nationals, be it personal finance journalists, be it city reporters. Get your target list. Use something like Headline Money. We've got a journalist database. You can dice and slice it to your heart's content. There's contact numbers there. There's the contact details of the journalist, the contact numbers, the email addresses. Build your target lists and then pick up the phone. Reach out to them and indeed, meet them for that coffee, meet them for that informal chat and look to sell yourself in doing it that way. Equally, what I'd say is on the Headline Money platform, we have Money Talks interviews that we do weekly with the movers and shakers of the journalist world. Have a read of those. What's good about them is, it's roughly 20 questions, but we really get under the bonnet of why they entered journalism, what they write about, and equally how they like to interact. The timings when they're looking to get when they're happy to meet for a coffee, and of course, don't do it on press day. They're never going to speak to you on the press day. So find that out as well. I mentioned before, don't send wild emails, target wisely. And we also basically did a survey last year in the Financial State of the Nation. And one of the questions was, how do you like to be contacted? And 75% of our journalist respondents said they preferred to meet PRs informally for lunch or a coffee. So that's from the horse's mouth. Number 6, make sure that your press releases are backed up by some data or indeed some sort of survey research. It's got to be a reasonable sample size, but remember to frame your argument. But remember, the journalist, if it's not robust enough, they are journalists for a living, and they're bound to pick holes in it. So try and do your utmost to have some data behind it. Number 7, plan your sort of campaign, your PR campaign, your press release campaign. I would say, post often. Have a plan. Probably try and post once a month, but try and do it around the fiscal events. I mentioned the spring statement and indeed the autumn budget. So do try and do that. Do try and have some spokespeople that are able to comment on these matters. Again, Headline Money gets exceptionally busy around those two events every year. Always showcase your spokespeople. Journalists love a direct quote. Have them available. And the other point is, do try and get a gender balance right. So if you've got a male spokesperson, do try and get a female one to balance it out. This is something that's going to get more and more important as we go on, certainly for this year. So I would definitely try and balance that out. And then finally, number 10 is network. Now, be it if you're reaching out to for an informal coffee or a chat or a dinner with a journalist, but equally, Headline Money is more than just a platform. You know, we have the awards. I would definitely say if you haven't been before, you should try and go. Try and get an invite, but it probably will sell out, so you may not get that. But get a table, and if you could afford it, sponsor. It's you're celebrating the best in financial journalism, and it's the night of the year. Thank you.
Fantastic. And once again, if you want to go along to the event, it is Wednesday the 8th of May at the Brewery in London, the Headline Money Awards 2019. Well, that wraps up this special programme from Business Connections Live. Hope you found it interesting. So if you are thinking about raising your company profile in the financial press, and I hope today's information will be of help for you. From myself, Steve Hunn, and Martin Quinn from Headline Money, thank you very much for watching. And don't forget the live show every Monday at 12 noon. Till then, have a great week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.